In the earliest days of Rome, long before it became an empire, the Italian peninsula was not a unified land, but a patchwork of hill towns, rival clans, and rising city-states. The future was uncertain, and power belonged to those who could claim it. Among these lands stood Rome and Alba Longa, two cities bound by shared ancestry, shared gods, and shared pride. They were not strangers or distant enemies. They were relatives, branches of the same ancient bloodline, and perhaps because of that, their rivalry cut deeper than most. Alba Longa was the older of the two, a city whose people claimed their lineage from Aeneas, the Trojan prince who survived the fall of Troy and carried the memory of his people across the sea. To Alba Longa, Rome was a younger sibling, ambitious, growing, and becoming dangerous. Rome, meanwhile, did not see itself as a rival. Rome believed itself destined, a city chosen by fate, a city meant to rise. But destiny, no matter how loudly claimed, does not go uncontested. Tension grew between the two cities for years. Disputes over grazing lands, political influence, and the loyalty of neighboring tribes fueled resentment. Words gave way to threats. Threats gave way to armies. And soon the forces of Rome and Alba Longa marched to the same valley, prepared to wage a war that would decide which city would shape the future of their world. Yet when the armies faced each other, something happened that neither side expected. The commanders hesitated. The cost of victory would be catastrophic. These were not foreign enemies. These were kin. Brothers-in-law served on opposite sides. Families were split by allegiance. A battle would not just shed blood. It would stain the ancestry of both cities for generations. So the leaders reached an agreement that seems almost impossible to imagine now. Instead of thousands fighting, only 6 men would fight. 2 sets of brothers, 3 Romans and 3 Albans. Their duel would decide the fate of both cities. No reinforcements, no second chances. The lives of 6 would determine the lives of thousands. The Roman brothers were known as the Horatii, the Alban brothers, the Curiatii. All 6 were young, strong, and trained from childhood to fight. They stepped forward between the two armies while thousands watched in complete silence. The morning air was cold. The ground was dry. Their armor glinted in the harsh daylight, but none of them looked afraid. They understood the weight of the moment. Glory or death was not the prize. The fate of 2 nations rested on the swing of a sword and the strength of a shield arm. The signal was given, not with a trumpet or a shout, but with the lowering of an officer's hand. The brothers advanced. Their shields met with a sound that echoed across the entire field. The duel began. It was not elegant, it was not clean, it was brutal. A grinding struggle of bronze, muscle, and resolve. Spearheads glanced off shields or shattered under force. Swords replaced them. The 2 lines pressed, retreated, shifted, tightened. Every movement had purpose. Every strike carried decades of training behind it. The balance held until it didn't. One of the Horatii was struck beneath the arm. The blade found a gap in his armor. He fell, and the Roman line shifted to close the space he left behind. But the Albans pressed harder. Another Horatius was overwhelmed, wounded, disoriented, cut down. In a single moment, it became 3 against 1. A gasp rose from the Roman ranks. The last Horatius could not outfight 3 opponents at once. If he held his ground, he would be surrounded, overwhelmed, and killed. The war would be lost. Rome would submit. Its destiny would belong to another people. So he did something no one expected. He turned and ran. The Albans, flush with advantage and eager to finish the fight, gave chase. But the Horatius was not fleeing in fear. He was calculating. The 3 Curiatii had all been injured in the earlier fighting. Their armor felt heavier. Their legs were slower. As they pursued the lone Roman, they became separated, first by steps, then by dozens of paces. Their unity fractured. The Horatius stopped suddenly, turned, and struck the first pursuer while he was alone. The Alban fell. Then the second arrived, slower, bleeding. The Horatius met him, blade to blade, and ended him as well. The final, Alban, wounded and exhausted, fought with grief more than skill. The Horatius finished him, cleanly, silently. The field was quiet. Rome had won. The armies did not erupt into cheers right away. Even victory felt heavy. The bodies of brothers, on both sides, lay in the dust. Rome would rise because of this moment. Alba Longa would kneel, but the price had been blood, youth, and lineage. The Horatius returned to the city wearing victory on his shoulders and grief in his chest. The people gathered to meet him. They would remember him as a hero, as the man who secured Rome's future. But among the crowd was one who did not see triumph. Horatii, the sister of the fallen Horatii, for she had been betrothed to one of the Curiatii, the very man her brother had killed. When she saw the cloak of her beloved among the spoils of battle, she cried out in grief. Her mourning drowned the cheers. Her sorrow challenged the triumph of Rome. And in that moment, the last surviving Horatius saw her tears not as love, but as betrayal. Rome had won. Their brothers were dead, and she wept for the enemy. He drew his sword and struck her down where she stood. The celebration ended in silence. The hero of Rome had killed his own sister. He was seized and brought to trial. The people were forced to answer the question that would define Roman identity for centuries. Does loyalty to the state outweigh loyalty to blood? Some argued that no man who secured Rome's survival should be punished. Others argued that if Rome allowed murder in the name of loyalty, then Rome itself would become hollow, cruel, and monstrous. In the end, the people spared Horatius from execution, but not from judgment. He was condemned to pass under a beam in the public forum, a ritual humiliation, acknowledging that even heroes were not beyond the law. Rome was a city built on duty, on sacrifice, on the belief that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. But it also learned, on that day, that victory is never clean, that greatness has a cost, and that the stories that shape a nation are not always stories of triumph. Sometimes they are stories of grief and the choices a people make about what they value most. And Rome chose endurance. Rome chose destiny. Rome chose itself.